Hey everybody, this is Don and Don Giannatti, and I'm talking with Dallas Logan over in LA. Dallas is a photographer I've been friends with on Facebook for a long time. It's our first chat, so we are so prepared. We've actually spent zero time talking about this because we just wanted it to be kind of fun. You know, that's how I like it anyway. So if you have questions, hit the chat thing there, and I'll get them. I think Dallas is able to see them. Hit the chat, Dallas. You'll see a little chat window pop in over there.
Got it.
So you told me that you're a big aficionado of subject-centric light as well.
Yes. Yes, I am. And I'm glad when I saw your creative live, you said it in a way that I can articulate it better because I've been teaching for a long time. And it was hard to explain that to people. And when you said subject-centric lighting and what it meant, I was like, that's exactly how I need to say it. So I'm not going to lie to you. When I teach, I use that same phrase.
That's just fantastic. It's just fantastic.
How do you come up with that term?
Well, it was back in the days of Flickr and a site called the Strobist guys.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember those guys. But they had a lot of back and forth on what light would do what and what light would do what. And they were always talking about the light. And they would say things like, well, where's the best place for a portrait light? And someone would say 45 degrees. And I'd say, in my experience,
right,
45 degrees is probably the last choice I'm going to make. I want something a little more. And then I said, but what's your subject? Well, the subject matters. And they would light glassware with umbrellas and stuff like that. You could see the umbrella in the glass. You know, I've been doing this a long time as a photographer, and I learned a lot of lighting from and his name was right there, and it just went right away. That happens.
David Hobby.
No. Shoot, he passed away way too young. He used to publish in Pop Photo a lot, and gosh, I am so sorry, I'm forgetting his name, but he's one of my great lighting heroes. But he would always talk about what the light did to the subject and what the subject did back with the light. And you know, on Creative Live, I wanted to have a really black bowling ball, real shiny black bowling ball, and it fell out of the truck on the way that they went to get the bowling ball, and when they were coming back, the really black one fell out of the back of the truck, so we didn't have it. But one of the experiments that I do, Dallas, is I'll take a black bowling ball and put a softbox right over the top of it. Yep. Right? You see the great big highlight. Mm-hmm. Then you pull the soft light back to about 10 feet away.
Right.
If you zoom in on the highlights, same color.
Exactly. It's
the same brightness. Whether it's 6 feet away or there, it's the same brightness. It's a little white patch on the ball.
Right, exactly.
And I think that the technically understanding that everything reflects, that we don't see light, we only see the light bouncing off whatever we put it. And I'm guilty of it too. I'll say bounce cards, like I'm bouncing the light. No, light don't bounce.
Right, exactly.
All we're doing is lighting up the card and providing something bright for the face to reflect.
Exactly. I even teach people because that other misnomer when they say white reflects and black absorbs, and it's like they've been hearing that for so long, for so many years, that it's become like this universal photography law. And it's like, no, you're reflecting black back. No, it's not. It's absorbing the black. And it's like, if I put a blue sheet of paper there, what is that going to do? If I put a red card there or a green card, it all does the same. So I actually have my students walk up to a white wall and just say, put this blue sheet of paper against the wall. What do you see? I see blue. So if you put a black piece of paper there, what do you see? I see black. So how can the science told me, if we say if white reflects, how does black absorb? Science doesn't change in the terms of color.
No, not at all. It has to do with the effectiveness or the efficiency of the surface.
Exactly.
I remember seeing one of the examples I use about understanding light is, let's say, okay, there's this great shot of Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
That was really famous. Made a poster out of it. His head's down. He's got a turtleneck on, and he's got his eyes. He's dripping with he's dripping with sprayed on water. But it looks like he's sweating, right?
Of course.
And I said, look at this shot. What's the true value of Michael Jordan?
Mm-hmm.
Black. Black is the true value of Michael Jordan. What is the photographer doing? He's putting highlights. We can see Michael Jordan unless we see highlights.
Exactly.
And if black doesn't reflect, what the hell's happening there?
Exactly.
Right? The other shot that I use is Carrie Underwood in a wedding dress.
Mm-hmm.
I said, now this is white skin, white hair, white everything. Highlights don't even show up.
No, they don't.
We got to create shadows. Yep. And we don't create shadows from the camera.
No.
For the light, we create shadows from putting a black card, so her white face starts to reflect that black card.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, once a photographer gets it, though.
Once they get that, oh my God. It's a game changer.
It's like the little eyes go, just like that.
So are you saying refraction is backwards?
What's that?
Are you saying refraction is backwards?
Refraction?
Light refracts, right?
What's that?
Light refracts.
No,
we're talking about this. We're talking about the subject.
We're talking about the subject and how the reflection bounces off the subject. Refraction is how light goes through something. Let's say you had a glass of water, and light goes through that glass of water. That's the refraction.
Right.
Because that's a change. But as opposed to what he's talking about when light comes against a subject, like how the light's coming on me right now.
Right.
This is exactly what he's talking about. There's no light refraction there. It's how the light is reflecting back to you.
Right.
Okay.
If black soaked up light, we wouldn't see Dallas.
I get it.
And if white bounced light, then I'm creating what I have is I have a light over here to create a darker one on this side. Otherwise, boom, I'm practically the same color as the highlight here.
I got you. It's a reverse perspective. I got it.
Right, exactly.
All right, thanks.
Exactly.
Yeah, we do the same thing with electricity, so I get it.
Cool. And once you start to see, black satin, right? You put a curve and you put a little bump in black satin, you get a highlight. You get the highlight because, and this is the interesting thing, is because satin, when you blow it up with a microscope, is all these little hairs, right? Little fibers. Every one of those fibers is round, meaning at some point on that fiber, it's going to give you back a specular. At some point.
Yep. Just like hair.
Yep. Oh, my favorite hair light's open sky.
Oh, that was another thing, teaching what a hair light was. I used to work with one of my game-changing moments. I was assisting Marco Grobe. And you know how when you first started photography, you get these terms in your head like hair light or beauty light, and you think beauty light is supposed to be used for beauty. A hair light is supposed to be used for hair. So we're doing a Levi ad, and we're shooting in his garage in Los Angeles, and he didn't like the way the light was looking in the car. So he says, we need to light the car. So I'm like, okay, so I guess you need a car light. He was like, what the hell are you talking about? Just get me a beauty dish. So I got the beauty dish. It's like, but in my mind, like, we're not shooting beauty. Took it, hit it in under the dashboard of the car, and it lit the car up, and my whole life changed because we get so locked into these mindsets of how things are supposed to be used. And for years, I've had so many people come to me and say, what kind of hair light should I get? And I said, if you can go to the store and find me a hair light, I'll buy it for you. You have to find me a hair light that's called a hair light, because we get so caught up in these terminologies, which is why I always use the phrase light is light. You can use light for anything. And that was one of my game-changing moments of photography.
I I can remember a few. I think I've had a little more years than you have, Dallas. I've had a few game changes, but one of the things was when I finally realized, working with photographer in LA, realized that a beauty dish is not the tool, it's the look.
It's the look, right?
The look of a beauty dish is this little shadow under the nose, little shadow under the lips, and a heart down here under. That's a beauty dish. And the movie people back in the day of, the famous actress Hedy Lamarr and stuff, they made what they call a pan light.
Right.
And they'd bring that pan light down. Can you imagine having a pan light with a 5,000 watt tungsten bulb 4 feet from you?
Exactly.
Holy, no wonder they're all squinting.
Exactly. And got porcelain white skin.
Oh, yeah, that's 8 pounds of powder is what that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when you take a beauty dish and you put a sock over the front, it's not a beauty dish anymore. It's a round softbox.
It's a softbox, right? Exactly.
Yep. Here's one. I'll bet you you know this. Bet you haven't thought about it much. A beauty dish will give you the look of a beauty dish at two and a half times its diameter, distance from the subject.
Yes.
Yeah, same thing works with a 4x6 softbox.
Yep.
Same thing works with a strip light. If you want the light that looks like a beauty dish, and it's a 20-inch beauty dish, you got about 60 inches.
Yep.
After that, it's just a damn light.
It becomes a light. Yep. I agree. I agree.
It's interesting when we talk about the gear and what it does, and and you're all people, right? You shoot all people?
Primarily. Yeah.
We should clear this. Hold on for a second, Dallas. We need to clear this up with the NSA. Guys, we're talking about shooting people photography. So if the NSA is listening, FBI, CIA, you just never know these days, So yeah, you're mostly people and celebrities, right?
I'm primarily beauty, commercial beauty and fashion.
That's cool. How's LA treating you?
It's a different market I hear coming from New York.
Yeah.
In New York, I primarily shot models, and as I came to California, my subject changed to celebrities. And that's been like a stab on the throat because it's hard to shoot celebrities than it is to shoot a model.
Yeah.
So I had to get used to that. But I haven't lost any downtime, and there was no hiccup. I worked and nothing stopped, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
I had the New York look in California, so that's my selling point right now.
Well, there you go.
That's another hard thing to teach. When you've been shooting as long as we have, you try to teach students. You can actually look at some photographers' work and figure out where they're from because of their style of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I had to relearn to shoot California-style headshots because my headshots looked awful in this market for actors. Of course, because I shot like New York. So when my photos started coming out, they're like, you're shooting with a New York photographer, right? So I had to learn how to shoot a California-style headshot.
Well, I know that that shooting headshots for the theater, it's a different headshot than you do for TV and movies.
Yep.
And what's really interesting is how many people need those headshots. You think, well, if you're a big famous actor or something, you don't need them. Oh no.
No, they still.
Oh no, Tom Cruise is out getting headshots every year.
Yep.
That's and he's still just like any other actor. He's still sending them in, hoping to get a part. There's a lot of jobs he didn't get picked for. I talked to an advertising agency that said, yeah, our art director never hired Avedon.
Ha! I can imagine.
You kind of think, who would say no to Richard Avedon? A lot of people. They go, oh, we're going to get this guy over here.
That's what happens. And when I teach people, it's like, and when you teach these people, they almost find it insulting. I go, oh, you're a photographer from Philadelphia. How do you know? Because your work looks like Philly, or your work looks like Utah, or your work looks like London. And it's just the nature of your region.
Yeah,
it's like I'm still a product of New York City.
Yep.
And either that's going to sell me or they're not going to book me merely because I'm from New York.
Yep.
by the grace of God, thank God, it's because, yes, we're going to book you because you look like New York work.
Yeah, well, and some of it's your talent as well.
That helps too.
In front of you, you know. Very first time I ever shot in New York, I had a little place in New York. I was there for a year and a half. I kept going back and forth. Then I had my first baby, and all of a sudden going back to New York just wasn't as much fun as hanging around in the crib watching the baby kick. So, but one of the things that I noticed in New York, very first job was for a jeans company that wanted to come out and compete with Jordache. And you know, all those jeans companies, they were all Israeli. Jordache and half a dozen others.
Beat out that soon.
Yeah, all coming out of Israel. And so this guy had this line of jeans. I'm from Phoenix, so I'm used to having to direct my model. So these two girls from Elite are in front of me. Nice girls. We got that great hair and makeup. I mean, it was really, the girls were making more money than me. I was an up-and-coming photographer. They were established, right? And I put the camera up, and I do this, and they start to go to work, and I'm like, I got goosebumps. In fact, I just now got goosebumps. It was like, oh, my God. Like, a dog could take pictures of those girls, and they would turn it out. They were just nailed it every moment. I just love that.
Oh, I missed that. I haven't had that since I've been in California.
No, I had a studio in L.A. for 3 years, and L.A. is just a little rise above Phoenix. You know, they stand there like, what do I do? I don't know.
And even the look of the models, because we shot a beauty campaign last year, and the creative director, he kept asking me to give him models. So I'm giving him models from California, and we finally booked the model. So I'm shooting her. He said, this is what I'm looking for. And he goes to my portfolio. He says, this is the model I'm looking for. I'm like, that's a New York model. They have white alabaster skin in New York. They got Kate Moss in New York. They have Pamela Anderson in California. You're not going to get, Pamela Anderson is never going to look like Kate Moss.
No.
And I had to recalibrate my mind to stop looking for Kate Moss in California and stop looking for Naomi Campbell in California, because they don't exist here. They got the Barbie dolls and the Pamela Andersons out here.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple. Just name one supermodel that worked out of California.
I can't think of one.
Zero. You know, and even the California girls. Karen, I can't remember Karen's last name. She was a big supermodel in the 80s. She came from California, but they shipped her off to New York. Right. And the other difference is a New York model is going to be modeling every damn day, 6 hours a day. In LA, if they get a 5-hour shoot a week, they're thrilled. Yep. Big difference. My sister-in-law was I don't want to say she was a supermodel, but she was damn close. She still holds the record for the most 17 magazine covers.
Okay.
Yeah, and she lived in California, but she worked out in New York. She didn't bother to get a California agent.
Wow.
She just worked out in New York. Just would, she'd fly out about, gosh, I think she's gone like 3 weeks out of 4 when they were first married. So, and she made really good money, by the way.
He had my partner, who's right up next to me on the screen, kept beating into me. Stop looking for those California models right here. I mean, New York models, you're not going to find them. So it's like recalibrating the eye. And it's hard to take a commercial swimsuit model and do editorial fashion.
Well, especially because that swimsuit model looks great at 5'5".
Exactly.
Christian Dior don't work on 5'5".
No, not at all. Not at all.
No, it's a whole different thing. But you still have it the best on the West Coast, because if you think it's bad in LA, go up to San Francisco, where it is absolutely dreary. I see Bear shaking his head. He obviously knows what I mean. Finding good models. These are models who are just kind of like models you'd find in Tulsa. And I'm not running them down. I'm not. Right. You're never going to be a New York model if you work 4 or 5 hours a week.
We did that we did a workshop in Las Vegas, And the girls that were coming in there were like,
yeah,
they were really, and they were nice girls, but it's like, you couldn't even work as a receptionist in some of these New York agencies. It just isn't the market. And then we went up to Seattle. And you know how you walk down the street in a neighborhood, and as a photographer, we're constantly looking at people so you go, oh, I can shoot you, or you can be a model of this.
Yeah.
I walked through San Francisco for 2 days, and I turned to my friend, and I'm like, Day, I haven't seen any models here, or even anyone that you go, sometimes you can develop one. You see looks in someone. There was nobody in all of Seattle, and I said to myself, I can't live here. I would die a slow death here.
Yeah, there's not enough work for them there to make it a priority for the girls. I saw Day was laughing about Vegas. Remember, Day, what happens in Vegas stays.
Yeah, I actually grew up in the deltas of California, and Frisco, Berkeley, Oakland, it's a disaster.
Yeah. If I was going to work in San Francisco, I'd probably go all food and tabletop.
I think the closest I got to any type of models was in Chicago. And even the models that were looking good, they were getting the hell out of there.
Yeah. Well, I worked in Chicago for about a year and a half. I had a studio with a friend of mine. I basically helped him set a studio up. So I'd fly back and shoot in Chicago. Did a lot of catalog work. And we would always do a test before a catalog. And by the way, I use the word test. I do not use TFP.
Oh, no.
No, I'm sorry. When someone says TFP to me, I just want to beat them around the face with a board. But we would always test because the fear was you'd get some girl and the agency they'd be hawking this girl at rate, right? And then you find out she just moved from Iowa a week ago. And the only thing that makes her a model, she's 5'11" and weighs 118 pounds. That's it. And you're doing a catalog and you got to do, well, back in the day, we would do, 15 shots a day was rocking it. Today, they do 40, 50 shots a day. Yep. Those two girls I had up for the jeans thing, I could have done 200 shots a day. It's like, put them on an outfit, click, thank you, next.
You know what's so funny? After you had a taste of that, you start getting angry when the other models start coming back in. You're like, oh, God, I hate you,
Yep.
Yeah. You say, I don't want to waste a film on you.
I think it was the beginning of a slow career burnout for me, working with the models in New York and Chicago, going to LA and having, basically when you're in LA shooting models, it still have product, silicone. I'm just saying. But it just sort of lost its
the magic. Yeah.
Shooting a model's portfolio in Phoenix so that she can be in a J.C. Penney black and white ad in the newspaper just did not have the
same panache.
No, it didn't have the panache. So I started, branching out. I'm glad I did. I've had a really good career. I mean, I've shot for over 40 years, and I've never had a bank loan, and I've never had a line of credit. My studios run on cash flow.
Nice.
And if I said the words, I need that, but I can't afford it, the words were most important were, I can't afford it. Never went into debt.
Saying that early on.
Huh? What's that?
I remember you saying that early on.
Yeah.
I teach my students that as well. Somebody just bought their first phase 1 camera right out of pocket.
Yeah.
Well, if they buy it out of pocket, that's awesome. If they put it on a credit card or take a bank loan, they'll go, well, I need this for my business. Well, do you have enough business to afford that camera? No. So wait till you go into debt for $35,000. You have an $850 payment due every month.
Yeah, no.
Because your business ain't going to get better. But if it's out of your pocket, awesome. Rock it on.
And that's what he did. I told him to do it that way.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard, but I'm happy I did it that way.
Because he was going down that route of like, I can take out a loan, I can do this. I'm like, no, buy it in cash. That's how I bought mine. Buy it in cash.
Yeah, and you know what? You're going to love it so much more, Day. Is it Day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to love it so much more because you worked for it.
Yeah, that's what it felt
Worked for it.
like. That's what it felt like. I was just so surprised because it was something that I wanted for so long, and I don't know. And then he was saying work for it. I'm like, the money's never going to come. Every time I get $1, bills come, and I owe 75
know
cents.
that feeling exactly.
And then,
Hey, Day, I got a book for you. You got to promise me you're going to go to Amazon and get it. It's called "You Are a Badass with Money." You are. One of the things that happens is that, and you just said it, it just caught my ear, is you say, well, the money's never going to come. If that's your belief, you're right.
I beat it
So
out.
what you got to turn around and say, money comes to me easily and often. Money comes to me easily and often. You look at yourself in the mirror and you say it. And then guess what? Your brain will start going, hey, you could do that job over there. You never would have thought about doing that job, that gig.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trust me. It's, our brains are make-believe. We make shit up in our brains, then we believe it.
Then we manifest it in life. Yep.
Oh, we do. Oh, God, we do.
I beat it
Don,
into
my income's garbage. And from that Mother's Day shoot, the church raised $164 in donations. So I took, I think it was 76 of that and got to use 35 mil. So I now have 2 primes, my 15, my 35. That's after 3 years of trying to learn.
Thanks.
Well,
that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Took a long time.
I worked a couple of days for an up and coming fashion photographer in New York, who wore a skirt. Okay, so he was pretty outrageous at the time. It was a long time ago. Dallas, who wore a skirt way back in the day?
I'm trying to think. A skirt or a kilt? Was it a
Stephen
skirt or-
Meisel. Stephen Meisel shot, as far as I know, and still shoots with a 50 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he uses any other lenses. I've never seen any.
I've never seen any other. Right.
I've never seen any, telephoto shots.
Right.
You definitely don't see any wide angle shots with Stephen.
Or he shoots with the equivalent on whatever body he shoots.
On whatever, yeah, sure.
Right.
But when I worked with him, he had two F3s and one F2 hanging around his neck, right?
Nice.
And we would take one from him, he'd shoot it, he'd hand it to me, and I'd
change the
film,
film.
put it back to him, and they all had 50s.
Mm-hmm.
They all had 50s. So, if I believe I could make a living with a 35 for the kind of work I do now, I think I'd probably make a living with a 35 millimeter.
It's only the new kids who don't know any better thinking that they need all the lenses, because I was always taught in what we do, I've only had 3 lenses. I always had a normal, a telephoto, and a wide.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I ever had. That's all I ever needed. Now, you walk into these stores and they show you these really ridiculous lenses. And of course, the gearhead of me go, ooh, that'd be nice.
Oh, yeah.
I go, would I ever really use that? Because I have a Canon here. I must have maybe 7 lenses. I still only use 3. But in that mindset, I have to have it. Got to get that lens. I got to have it. And you don't use it.
Man, I was a Nikon shooter for decades. And I carried in my bag. Now, you're going to like this. Day, how many lenses you got for your phase 1?
For now, 1. I got 1. I'm working on 2.
Okay, but you're able to make photographs, right?
Absolutely.
There you go. I had
And
3.
fashion and beauty.
There you go. Absolutely. I had 3 F3 bodies with motors on them. So right there, that's 24 batteries. You know what that weighs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had 3. Those were in the kit. And then I had my lenses because I was a professional. I had a 20 and a 21. It's because a 21's important. If you're shooting with a 20 is too wide, you don't want to take a step forward.
Right.
Oh, no. We'll put the 21 on. And I had a 24 and a 28 and a 35 and a 50 and a 60 and an 85 and a 105 and a 135 and a 200.
Right.
Wow.
I was just like, yes, I'm a pro. I have every frickin' lens there is. And if they came out with a 45, I'd probably bought that one too.
Had to have it. Had to
I
have
have a 35 perspective control. So I used the 105 and the 180
Mm-hmm.
for 90% of the money that I made, bought the house, cars, braces for the kids, all that. 105 and 180. 180 lived on my camera. That was my put away the camera lens, was the 180.
Well, the only reason I got the 35 is you saw the big group of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to use the 18-55 kit, which I can't stand. And it was at about 23 mil. And I was talking to one of my mentors, and he said, you know, if you get the 35, you've already got the 50. If you get the 35, you'll get just enough angle that you won't get enough distortion to ruin the photo. You know, but you how can I say this? It won't be so wide that it distorts them, but
right.
You can get the group.
Right.
And you can get rid of, you know, I can stop using the kit. And that made sense to me. So the two main ones now are the 35 and the 50.
Are
well,
you
to me,
35?
I'm sorry?
Are you happy with your 35?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
That's what it ultimately boils down to. You have to be happy with your product. I don't like to recommend gear to anyone because it becomes a personal choice.
Right.
And what may work well for me may not work well for you. So when someone comes at me saying, what's the best lens to get for so-and-so? I put them through the paces. What do you want it for? What are you going to use it for? How much money do you want to spend? Where do you primarily shoot? And eventually, through the questionnaire I put them through, they end up making their own choice, because that's a lot of money to spend on a lens that is going to sit and collect dust if you don't like it.
Yep.
Or you force yourself to use it. or even a camera. I don't recommend cameras. I don't even look at cameras until it's time for me to buy one, because I don't know nothing about it. Camera, then I start looking at the specs, because these people, and I love when someone puts a question out there and they go, what kind of camera should I get? And everybody says, you should get this one, you should get that one. And you have to go, why?
Yeah. I always say, show me the five images that you wish you could have taken. And I'll tell you what lens to look at, but I'm not going to tell you which one to buy. I'm just going to say, start here. I have a 135 f2 Canon and a 200 millimeter f2 Canon. They're like my little orphan children over there that are always going, please take me.
I want to get rid of my 3300, my D3300. I can't stand that class of camera from Nikon. They have no respect for the consumer line. And the 3300 and the 5300, they said they do not repair. It is consumer line. They want nothing to do with it.
Wow.
Desperately want to get out of that. But like D7200. But other than that, I have no need for another camera.
No,
Good.
no. And believe me, when I tell you this, buying a used camera, there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody's like, oh, I got to get a D860 Mark III or whatever they are now. You know, hey, D800s are going for $1,000 on eBay. You remember when that was the best camera in the world? That was only 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's what that's always the conversation. It's like whatever camera you get, it was the best when it first came out. It was
as soon as you take it out the box, it's already obsolete.
Yeah. And they go, well, you can't shoot stuff with a D8 100 anymore. You got to have a D8. Well, people were shooting stuff with D800s. People were shooting I know some great photographers who shoot with D750s. It's a hell of a camera. D750 that's a hell of a camera.
I think if I got a D7200, that would be a responsible upgrade.
No, that's a crop sensor, right?
Right, which the 3300 is also.
Okay.
I've already got all the lenses. The 7200, from what I understand, is an excellent camera. It is the equivalent of the 750 in the APS-C format.
Now, why do you want to stay with APS-C? I don't say there's anything wrong with it, but why is it you want to stay with that?
The main reason is because I've already got the lenses.
So your 35 is a crop sensor lens?
Yes.
Okay.
My 35 and 50, all the lenses I have, I've got the 55 to 200 kit. I've got the 50 1.8 prime, 35 1.8 prime, and the 18 to 55 kit. And those are all APS-C.
Okay.
Now, I know I can use them in the 750, go to APS-C mode. But the other thing is it does I do like to shoot wildlife sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
If I got a 200, I got that little bit of extra range because of the angle.
I got to tell you, I with the kind of stuff I do now, I would pick up a used D7. Now I shoot a DF, the Nikon DF,
Yep.
and I shoot all primes on that.
This
But
is
if I only had one lens to get, I think I'd probably get that 24 to 120.
Yeah.
That is, wow, what a lens.
that's like a 24 to 105 day.
That's
Okay.
yeah, that's what I shoot with is the 24 to 105 on my Canons.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, and when people talk about, well, it's an F4, you're going to have everything in the world in focus. You want to go, oh, you've obviously never been a photographer. Okay.
Exactly.
I never think about that. I always think about just creating the art. Like the numbers only I don't do a lot of shallow depth of field work. So it's like I'm not worried about.
No, you should. And the other thing is they go up on, you can get there's a website that has a depth of field calculator.
Yeah.
And you do a headshot at like, what would you do a headshot on a 105, Dallas? Probably what, 7 feet, 8 feet?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds about right? Yep. It's about 8 feet. Do the calculations between f4 and f2.8, and it's like less than an inch.
Less than an inch, yep.
And I look at people and I go, well, if that is what you're looking for, and you want to spend $1,000 for it
On that thing.
Right.
You know, because the F4 80 to 200 is so light, it's so easy to carry, and the 2.8 is like carrying a Mack truck around in Canon.
Got that lens too.
But if I remember right, if you want it shallower, you walk forward, right?
Right.
It depends on what you're trying to achieve, though, because when you do the kind of work we do, our wall is usually solid.
Right.
So I don't have to necessarily worry about blurring out the background.
Okay.
You know, and in some instances, you can get a shallow depth of field at f8 if you're at enough of a distance from your background.
Yeah, and depending on what lens you are, right? F8 on a 20 millimeter, everything's in focus. Good luck, but there's no shallow. F8 on a 500, not so much. My 8x10 view camera, the normal lens, the one that would be equivalent to a 50, is a 350 millimeter lens.
Wow.
So my normal lens is 350. Now, it covers if I look through a 50 millimeter lens here and the 8x10 here, the heads would be the same. Except this bad boy is 350 millimeters, which means you've got like this much depth of field at f8. That's why when you're doing things and you get the ability to do like a telephoto with, what's that, Brenziger effect?
Right, the Brenziger effect. Right.
Yeah, where he shoots the thing with the telephoto to get the very soft backgrounds, but then he shows you a picture that looks like it was shot on a wide angle.
Yeah.
That's why it looks large format, because that's what a large format would do.
Okay.
Exactly.
I just found a back for my 4x5, Dallas, and you put your Nikon on it, and it's got these little indentations. So you put it, you get the camera ready, you put the camera here, you take a shot, it slides over to this little indentation. Take one, slides down, take one, take one, take one. You get 6 shots, and then you stitch it together.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting one of those.
It's the little things that make us happy.
Well, I mean, can you imagine doing food?
Yeah.
I mean, you could get that 4x5 feeling
right.
with
That
it
feeling, right.
in digital. Of course, I can't imagine what the file sizes are going to be.
Yeah.
Let them deal with that.
I'd like to see Day do that with 5 or 6 80 megapixels and stitch that bad boy together on a 13 MacBook Pro that's 4 years old.
The MacBook Pro behind them.
Phase 1.
What's that?
I said,
what? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dallas.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just wondering what made they spend the insane money for the phase 1.
You just got to see the file.
You know what happened? To be completely honest with you, I was Dallas's assistant for some time, and I remember when he first handed me his camera, And he was like, hold this. And I was like, yo, I don't know what to do. So I was holding it like this.
Right.
It was like, how long you want me to hold this? I'm like, you can't sit this down. I don't want to touch this thing. This, it's really expensive. And then throughout the years, he kept saying, stop being afraid of the camera, learn the camera. And he has a Hasselblad. And so working with his camera, and then one of my first shoots, he was like, use my camera. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
So I used it, and it was getting used to, it's a complete different feel than the 35 millimeter. And so from using his camera and always using my 5D Mark II, and there were certain things that I noticed, because I'm extremely observant when it comes down to images. And I'm like, why does the Canon keep sharpening things that I don't want to be sharpened? And your camera is this smooth, milky sort of texture to your photos. It's like, I love that, whatever. And so years and years, I said, okay, I'll ask Dallas to hold this camera when I'm doing my portfolio work. And for my regular shooting day to day, I'll still use my Canon. I love my Canon. And then one day, it was actually Dallas's fault. He said, let's see how much it costs to lease your camera. And I was like, don't do that, because I'm extremely obsessive. He did it. The numbers came in.
Stop that was, you get the emails from Digital Transition or Capture Integration. They had a sale. So I said, let's go check out a sale. Let's see how much it'll cost. And yeah.
And so it went down that rabbit hole, and it was like, I can afford this. Oh man, I got this new gig. I can pay for my camera in a couple of payments. And he was like, no, save up your money and then pay for it. And I was like, the torture. And Dallas made me try all of the medium format cameras. So I had the Phase 1 in hand. I loved it. I love the Hasselblad because it's home base for me as far as medium format cameras. I love the Hasselblad. I love the Phase 1. My
first lesson with him was the Mamiya RZ67.
That's my favorite.
Okay.
That's one of my favorites. And
you have a digital back for that?
No, I took
no,
him
we don't have a digital back for it.
with film.
You were with
I thought
film?
that was film.
Wow. The RZ is a classic camera.
Yeah.
And he told me
Imagine making him walk
in New York.
And I said, do not take your eye off the viewfinder.
So I was walking in New York like this the entire time, and I'm like, okay, this is.
How many times did you walk in the wall?
I was his guide.
So learning that way, learning from the Mamiya, and then I had a choice. It was like, hey, I love the Hasselblad. Do I want to get another Hasselblad? Because Dallas already has a Hasselblad. It's like, hey, let's bring a new baby in the house.
Okay.
You have the Hazy. I got the Phase 1.
Okay.
We got, we'll just use them in whatever way we want to use them. Like, I still love my Canon.
Which Canon do you have, Dave?
The 5D Mark II.
We did a shoot up in the Cascades outside of Seattle. It was
nice.
This beautiful rainforest shot. And there was a guy with us with a earlier model Phase 1. This was 4 years ago, so earlier than yours. Phase 1, he had just gotten the D800. That's 4 years ago, right? The D800 came out? Yeah. He had it was like he ordered it when he heard about it, so he was one of the first deliveries. And I had a Canon 5D Mark II. And we set it up, and we took a picture of the same part of the rainforest, because it was so dense with leaves. I really wanted to see it. And believe me, that 5D Mark III took an exceptional photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Right in front, there was this little leaf that comes down that had a little red dot on the end of it. I can see that little red dot perfectly.
Mm.
On the D800, the red dot was actually a bug. And you could see that bug perfectly.
Wow. On
the Phase 1, you could count the legs on the bug and that's when I was going, holy crap. Because, on Photoshop, you keep hitting the little plus sign.
Yeah.
Things get bigger, right? See, when you're on a Phase 1, you keep hitting the little plus sign, things get bigger. You go, what? What? What?
Right, exactly.
Just
Did
like
you get
every-
the 50 or the 100 day?
I got the what is this? The 60, 160.
Oh, yoy.
So,
Okay.
and what's interesting about it is a good and a bad thing. The good part about it is you can do those. It gives you that creamy texture. It gives you those. You can zoom in the whole, really, really far. The awful part is it shows you everything. So it's like all of your sins are all exposed. So it's certain things that Canon wouldn't show. And I did a shoot one time with the Hasselblad, and I did one with the Canon. At the same time, I was going back and forth. And I remember saying, I will never do this again. This is the worst decision I ever made.
Yeah.
And it showed this woman's.
Let's retouch it on the Canon.
Oh, if you see the raw file of this woman and on the Hasselblad, it was like, and the retouch took hours. And I remember saying to myself,
Dallas, you shot film, right?
Yes.
One of the things I've often commented about that I miss about film, I don't miss, film exactly, because I still shoot film. I do. But one of the things I really feel I've missed is the format, the choice of a format. You sit down with an art director or a shot comes to your mind, and the first thing you think is format. Is this going to 2 1/4 job, or am I going to want to do this? I want to look down into it. Do I want to put a black cloth over? Do I want to have a big ass negative? And then all those choices went away. And the ergonomics was a 35 millimeter camera.
And that's why I didn't like the first phase ones that came out, because it felt, when you work with a medium format camera or a large format camera, you have a piece of equipment in your hand. And one of the selling points of the phase one is like, it's as easy as a 35 millimeter. So when I put the phase one in my hand the very first time, I'm like, coming from a RZ67, I'm like, I don't like the way this feels in my hand. It feels like a toy. So when Dave brought his, that was the first time I actually picked up a phase one again. I'm like, oh, now this feels like a camera. This is what it should feel like.
Well,
and another thing, they tricked us too. When we went to the stores at Digital Transition, I was getting the old phase one. And he brought out both bodies. And he was like, yeah, and I'm like, this one that you want? I'm like, looking at it. And I'm like, why did you bring that out? He said, oh, I just want you to see. I just want you to see what it feels like. And it was like, no, I don't want to touch it. He's like, come on, just touch it. Dallas was like, touch it. And I picked it up. And I was like, oh. I was like, Dallas, touch it. And he was like, oh, yes. This is what it's supposed to feel like.
Yeah. And shooting fashion, when you're shooting full-length fashion, you want to shoot from the model's navel angle. So the Hasselblads and the RZs and the RBs, that's where it was.
Yep. And
then you get the 35, and I see people standing up shooting fashion with a 50. And I'm just thinking, oh.
You know what it's going to look like.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to see the top of her shoes. So sweet. I have no idea how high the heel is. We're just going to look at the top.
Yep.
I have a little camp chair that goes with me. Little camp chair. And I sit in the camp chair because I need to shoot from straight across. Or even better for the kind of work I like to do, I like to lay down on the ground and shoot just slightly up with a 200 or a 300. Because I did a bunch of catalog work in New York City, and Dallas knows, Day knows, when you get a permit for that block, that's the permit you got. You're stuck with it. If you're going to have any kind of lighting or anything, you can't cross the street. You got to go get another permit. So we would find a place where the sidewalk would run out, and then I would have a lot of distance between the next buildings so I could drop them out of focus with a 300 at 5.6. Then I'd get down low, and then that would drop the sidewalk, so I didn't have any sidewalk. It's almost just like shooting them on the edge of a building.
Yep.
Just loved it.
Those were the days.
Oh, those were heady days. It's different now, too. Have you noticed I'm an older guy. I don't have you know, that kind of following. But when I was 30, my studio was filled with models, art directors, makeup artists. Everybody would stop by. There'd be beer every night, whatever. And now, even some of the younger guys I go into, that vibe isn't there anymore.
Not the same.
Nope.
And neither do they care, because what happened is, in our time, it's digital changed the format, because in music and in movies and in photography, it was about the product. Then there was a shift. It became about the producer and the photographer, and they became rock stars.
Yeah.
Bert Stern.
So back when because for years I didn't know what Herb Ritts looked like or what Bruce Weber looked like. I didn't care. I just wanted to see their work. And then now these kids come up, you know, they're the forefront of their product, and it's like, what does your work look like?
Yeah. Like for a while, like I wasn't about like showing my face, because it was like, it's not really about me. It's not about my personal life. It's not about anything. And I remember somebody saying to me that they felt my work was disconnected, because they was like, I don't know who you are. I'm like, look at my work. You know who my work is. You can look at my photos and say, okay, that's a day shot. He says, yeah, but we don't know anything about you. And I had this really big guy that I was working with, and he was out of London, and he said, the format is changing. And this is maybe 10, maybe a little bit over 10 years ago. And he started to explain everything, like, things are changing. Oh my God, what's happening? Okay. Oh, sorry. So he said things are changing. And he says it's no longer about, people are buying into the talent. They're not really caring about, he said everything. He said nobody's really going to care about the music. They're going to care more about the talent than actually about the music. They're not going to care about what the product is. They care more about who the product is coming from than the actual product. And
yeah,
then you start to see these rock stars
you can see it. So the parallel is so great in the music industry and how it's gone. I mean, for years we talk about the bands, but we cared about what the bands were putting out. Yeah. And now the focus is on the bands. They don't even have to put out music. They just get talked about.
They just got to get drunk and have a fight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Justin Bieber, you know, what do we know about his music? Really almost nothing. We just know about Justin Bieber and his
who he's dating and this new diet he's on. He's brand new. He picked up this new drink, and what's the drink he's drinking now? Where did that come from? I think I want that drink. It's so weird, but
or people care more about your behind the scenes than they care about the final product.
Do you know? Yeah, yes. You know, you're absolutely right. You know what industry put the kibosh on that?
What?
The modeling industry. Notice that there's damn few supermodels.
They don't exist anymore.
They don't exist anymore. And the reason is, quietly and behind the scenes, the agency started realizing if we end up with a supermodel like Christie or both Christies, so Janice Dickinson, they become divas. And now the agency's working for them.
Right.
And they're turning down this job and they're going over here. And then they get, like, at one point, Janice Dickinson was represented by 27 agencies all over the world. They said, well, you know, so now if a girl starts getting too hot, they just tamp her down and bring somebody else. And they tamp him down and bring somebody else. And there's no supermodels. There are very few super photographers in the real world. Online,
right? Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different.
Which is, let's just say there's a different criteria. Can we go with that, Dallas? We'll just go with that.
I had conversations about that too. Like I tell people, like sometimes when you have people ask me questions and they say, well, what do you do, you know, to get better, and how do I get better? I'm usually like, study photographers, study everybody that came before you.
Yep.
Study those people. If they have an Instagram page, don't look at their work. Go back, look at the books. Dallas used to make us go to Barnes and Nobles, and we'll spend hours and hours and hours in Barnes and Noble studying all different types of photographers, landscape, fashion, beauty. You get to see their work. You get to see where the ideas come from, and you get to understand. It kind of puts you it lets you know where you are by understanding where they came from.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay,
yeah,
got it. And you realize your journey isn't you're not by yourself. You're not the first to do anything. It puts you in a place where you just like, okay, I get it. This is where I am. He was at this place too, and this other photographer was at this place too, and she was here too. So it's like, okay, I'm in a good place. I understand where I'm from. So I study a lot of photographers.
And I'll also make them go to the museums and look at paintings.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I went to see the Cartier-Bresson at MoMA a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And they had and that was mind blowing. That was really fun. They had this sort of Renaissance. It was paintings by women of the Renaissance.
Okay.
And I'm standing there and I'm looking at the fruit in a basket and everything. And I got chills. I said to my friend, I said, we forget. This was painted in 1465. Look at the rim light. Look at the highlight. Look at the shadow detail. Good God.
Mm-hmm. Painters were our first photographers.
Look at the softbox that didn't exist.
Exactly. It was like kitchen window in the bar or something. Who knows? It was just so fascinating.
And when I talk to these young kids and I say, we're taking a trip to the museum, the first words out of their mouth is why? Why do you have to go to the museum? Yeah. That's how you learn. What am I looking at? What do you look at when you look at a photograph? And it's hard because it's becoming a lost art. And I'm like, so the rule of thumb is look up your admirer, then see who they are, who they like, and then see who they like. Eventually, you should end up at a museum.
Yeah.
If you don't, that's a photographer to study.
If we can't appreciate the men and women who busted their ass to get us where we are, it's like talking to a photographer that doesn't know who Imogen Cunningham was, or Edward Weston, or all the way back to Cartier-Bresson. I mean, Cartier-Bresson changed photography. One guy. Just amazing. And then you talk to young fashion photographers and you go, you're familiar with Demarchelier? And they'll go, who? You know, if you can't be a fashion photographer if you don't know who Patrick Demarchelier is.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't be a fashion photographer if you don't know fashion. Exactly. If you're a car photographer and I said 57 Bugatti, you know, right, in your head, right, you got a 57 Bugatti. Mm-hmm. If you're a fashion photographer and someone says Balenciaga, whatever, you know what that is.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're just shooting girls.
Absolutely. You're shooting girls in clothes.
Yep.
I got the fashion sense of a rock.
Well,
you don't need to have the fashion sense. You just need to understand fashion.
Yes, exactly.
That's different. So if I said to you, this fabric, this chiffon shoots differently than this velvet, you understand chiffon has a sheen while velvet doesn't.
Right, that makes sense.
I don't have to wear either one, but I have to understand the characteristics of that fabric.
Okay.
That's different. No, it's not. All of those who make that shit look beautiful, we have nothing to do with fashion. I wear jeans, hoodies, and jerseys. Yeah. So when I walk into a room, I'm saying I'm the fashion photographer. They look at me like I have two heads.
Yeah, you don't have to be fashion, but I'll tell you this: if I said to Dallas, this year's Prada purses, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. I know they look like.
we used to go to the store. My wife and I. She'd be buying Sports Illustrated, and I'm buying Vogue. You know.
The only time I bought Sports Illustrated was a swimsuit issue.
I didn't even much care for that. I saw. Did you ever see the video, the making of a Sports Illustrated thing?
Yes.
Photographer and all that, and they're flying around looking at beaches in the Caribbean.
Right.
And then they shoot the girl with a 300 standing on the sand.
Standing in the sand in the rocks behind the rocks.
You could have shot that in Jersey.
Right.
Yep.
Well, they sure had a blast doing that.
photography, fashion photography, and beauty photography and commercial photography are lies.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
We're made to perpetuate lies. That's what we do.
Yep.
You have to make people feel like if they were to buy this product, that's how they would look, or that's how they would feel. So the girls have to look like they're having the time of their life.
Yep. You're absolutely right. We want to sell the dream that
We sell a
you
lifestyle.
can look like Christy Brinkley if you buy this thing.
Yep. I tell people all the time, especially people who just like entering this business, like we are liars. We are the reason why we're liars, and we help push the lie. This product is not the product. Sometimes the products that we see is like, this looks so cheap, and then they'll say, yeah, make it look expensive.
You know, it's like, this is what your bag is made of, and you're charging $1,800 for this plastic bag.
Oh, I shot a $4,000 leather bag that was extremely like cheap. And he said, "Can you make it look expensive?" And I was like, "Okay, all right." And I shot it, and he was like, "Oh, this is beautiful. This is great." And then, like nothing, but he used the photos and put it on his website. But it was just like the bag was so cheap and it was like you have to put stuff in it to make it stand up and look right. It was so cheap, and it was like, please, we are liars, and we help push this lie and make people feel like.
One of the assignments I do on Project 52, they have to go and buy a power strip. You know, those where you got multiple plugs?
Yeah.
You got to buy a power strip, and you got to do a really killer shot of it.
And make it look sexy.
Make it look sexy. Make it look like it's worth $49.95 because it's worth $3.
Yep.
That would be hard.
It is hard.
It's all about the light.
It is hard. You're right. It's about the light. It's about the point of view. It's about what you do with it. It's, you know, and I've had students who failed, but I have most of them will just bust their butts. They'll come back and say, "God, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do." Yeah, but that's what we have to do every day. And Dallas knows there's no such thing as a 3-run hit. There's no such thing as a base hit. You don't get to set. You gotta deliver a home run every single time you walk to bat.
Every single time. We can't make it any less.
No.
At all.
Some people thrive on that. Some people, it eats up some people. They can't do it.
Because a lot of them didn't have to go through they didn't have to go through the trenches.
Yeah.
So when you're shooting film, you had to take your time, and you had to make it happen, as opposed to, I can just keep shooting because eventually I'll get the shot.
Right.
You didn't have that luxury when it comes to film. So you had to make this pen look larger than life.
Right.
You know, or so when they go to the store, they go, "Oh, that's how big it is," because it was our job to make it look like the size of a building and to make it look sexy and make you want to buy it. And we've been doing a lot of product shooting lately for a makeup company. And you try to tell these makeup companies and these perfume companies, there's actual, when you do these ads and stuff, there's actually props that you would shoot with that'll really be larger than the actual product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So makeup bottles, perfume bottles. A perfume bottle would be about this big. But when you buy it, it's about this big. But this is what we would shoot. And people didn't know these things. So these new guys are coming out, and they said, "Give us your product stuff," and they're bringing us actual small product. It's like, you don't have the big
prop one,
right? The prop one, like, no. It's like, oh, so we now have to work. We have to make this work because they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's different.
No, in fact, I have my students shooting like wine bottles, and I've told them, you know, if you're shooting for the local beer hall or wine parlor, they're just going to give you a bottle and you take it home and shoot it.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're shooting for Robert Mondavi, they're going to give you 4 or 5 absolutely perfect created bottles, and they're wrapped in velvet and everything. So they're absolutely perfect.
Isn't working, is it?
Right. But I see too many young photographers shooting the bottles that they got off the store thing at Wine Mart and not fixing them.
Yeah, no, it's
got to be fixed.
It's a process, especially like we have gloves and everything. You don't want to touch anything. It has to look, and then the cameras show everything. So it's different when you're sitting and you have to retouch the whole bottle, and you can see it's so much stuff that shows up on glass that you just never really you can't see it.
You want a quick retouch for dust on glass?
What?
Frequency separation.
Oh yeah.
What?
Frequency separation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Wendy had a question, I think, about low light.
Oh.
Be on the side. Do you see, is Wendy here? Wendy Hill?
Wendy, are you here? Yeah, she's here.
Yeah, I'm here. It's just super noisy in my house.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have a question?
Oh, no, it wasn't a question. When you guys were talking about lenses and not needing the larger apertures, I was saying that recently I'm doing a whole lot more low light stuff.
Right.
Well, if that's the case and you need it, that's really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But there's a sweet spot, and when you probably heard me go through the sweet spot, there's a sweet spot in photography where everything makes the difference in the world, and that's between a 30th of a second and a 250th of a second. Because anything that's blurry at a 30th is probably going to be blurry at a 15th, a 10th, an 8th, right? And anything sharp at 250 is probably going to remain sharp at 500. But the difference between 250 and 125, shoot an ice skater. You can't freeze her at 125. You can freeze her at 250. You can't freeze a bicycle at 125. You can freeze it at 250. After that, everything stays frozen. So within that little window, 30, 60, 120, and 250, life lived. So if you were shooting, I don't know, editorial, or if you were even shooting weddings and the bride's coming down the aisle and you got an f4 and you can only do a 30th, that doesn't work, right? But if you could go to 2.8 and get a 60th, you could freeze that bride. And that's one of the reasons. The reason of depth of field, no, not so much. But the ability to get that one more stop is so important. Today, we just float the ISO up. Boom, go to 200 and be done with it.
My current body, though, gets noisy fast.
So does mine.
What's your body?
The 7200.
Okay, Wendy, you have got to put yourself in the market for a new camera, because I know you're doing you're doing commercial work. You're gonna have to put yourself in the market for a new camera. I would recommend that you look for a used D750 or a used D800. And do that. You want a full frame for the kind of clients you're going after, food and restaurants and that kind of stuff. You're going to want a full frame. And you're lucky because you're shooting food and that kind of stuff. So you only need 2 lenses, 35 and a 50. And
and I have the 50.
Yeah.
I thought the 7200 was good for low light.
It's noisy.
Is it?
It's noisy.
Is it the 4.5 or the 2.8, Wendy? Which one do you have?
I'm not sure. I didn't know there was a difference in bodies there.
On the 50?
Oh, on the 50, it's a 2. No, it's a 1.8.
Okay.
But yeah, my 50 is a 1.8. So I'm able to use that on my current body, even though it's for a full frame, and I absolutely love the pictures.
What body are you shooting with?
The 7200.
No, that's the lens. What's the camera body?
No.
That is the camera body.
D7200 is
Nikon.
step up in the Nikon line.
I thought she was saying. I thought she was giving me
70 to 200.
That's
Yeah.
what she said. I was saying, why does she keep saying that 7200? It's like what? Okay, I'm sorry. My fault. I'm sorry about that. See, I know nothing about cameras.
If I shot 1600 on my 3300, it would look like somebody shot with a paintball gun.
Yeah.
It is that noisy. It's horrible.
If you want to stay with with the crop frame, the 7200 makes a lot of sense. It's a pretty good camera.
It is. The problem is just in low light, it gets, it gets pretty noisy. It gets grainy fast.
Does it?
I don't mind switching to full frame if there's a good reason for it. And I don't have enough experience yet to make that decision.
Are you shooting professionally?
No.
Okay. Then really there would be no difference. The only real big difference for shooting full frame for commercial work is you have more crop room. Because you're never shooting just the frame. Art photographers, amateurs, professional, even pro-ams, they shoot the frame.
Right.
But when you're shooting for a magazine, you're shooting a different crop factor. And then they'll come in, they'll want a square shot. Right. Or they'll want a shot from a lower angle with this, and you've got a third of this image isn't going to be used. You have more crop ability on a full frame. Okay. Other than that, depending on where you are, you couldn't shoot a crop sensor camera in New York, Chicago, LA, San Francisco. Would not work.
Commercial photography work, no.
No. Okay. No.
I mean, I would like to make money from it, but that's not my primary goal. Like I was telling you with that Mother's Day shoot, that whole gig is, and Dallas, I know you don't know this, I'm going to work with DHS and the churches and give low-income families, underprivileged families, one free portrait per year. Digital.
Amazing.
Okay. Not going to charge them anything, but they have to have a referral from the church or a referral from DHS. If they can do that, then one time a year, they can get a digital image, no charge.
That's a cool thing to do, man.
Mother's Day, I did it for the first time. I showed Don, and they weren't the greatest, but I learned. So
that's part of the magic.
Yeah, I grew up shooting. I remember working the dark room, the whole 9 yards, but I didn't get serious about it until November 2015.
Okay.
And it's been a real interesting journey because I remember about 30% of what I was taught growing up, and I've always had a camera in my hand, but now it's a whole new ballgame. It's totally different.
Right.
On my page, I do something called Question of the Day. And one of the questions that I put up was, what was the lesson you learned that you would drop now? And what's the technique that you've been rammed down your throat for so long that you would change now? And I think one of the things I went through was when you first got your camera, you was always taught, fill the frame, fill the frame, fill the frame.
Yep. And
when I started crossing over into commercial photography, and I'll take a shot, and I love the shot, and then the art director will go, give me more headroom. Give me the shot with more headroom. I'm like, there isn't more headroom. We need space for copy. And you go, what's copy? So all I did was take the photograph. So I'm like, what do you mean? We can't use this shot. It's a hair shot. We need more hair, and we need area we can put words. And it was like I had to learn, you don't always have to fill the shots.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to step back or give the photograph breathing room in order to play with it.
For mine was, I had a camera. We were using film. It was my first camera, and my teacher, he had whatever film he used, the settings were, he always tell us, you will not go below F5 and you will not go higher than F8. So it's F5 and F8. And I thought I had that throughout my entire experience with cameras up until
you met me, and I said, what are you doing?
I met you, and I was like, what? Why you put an F5? I'm like, because I can only put it between F5 and F8. He was like, no, you can't. I'm like, I do not touch these settings. And then I had to go and unlearn everything that he taught me because it was crap. And it was like, what? I felt like, even today, I don't feel like I know everything. But then I felt like I knew nothing. I felt stupid. Like the camera, I had been working with this camera for maybe like 5-6 years, and then afterwards I looked at that camera. I was like, I don't even know you. I had to get the book again and say hi.
Screamed at him.
I am Dave. What's up? I need to understand you. I need to learn you again. I need to understand why was he telling me these things. He was afraid of noise. He was afraid of noise. He was afraid of movement. He was afraid of, we're kids. So we had film. We only have, I think we have like maybe 12 shots at that. And he wanted to make sure all 12 shots wasn't blurry. So he had the setting set. So this is the probability that the shots wouldn't be blurry. And for some odd reason, I knew those settings back to front, and those were my settings every time I shot. And then when I switched over to digital, there was like, I'm not wasting these frames. But that whole lesson was like, okay, I got it. I understand film. I understand why he did it. I understand why I'm not listening to it anymore. But that lesson was
when we're told by our teachers stuff like that. For me, it was the rule of thirds.
Oh.
Which rule of thirds, how about suggestion or friendly advice of thirds? Because, if you want to make shots that look like everybody else's, the rule of thirds is the absolute way to get you there.
Yeah.
It's like there were a lot of trumpet players when Miles picked up his horn.
Yeah.
We remember Miles because he did it all frickin' wrong.
Yeah.
He didn't hold the mouthpiece right. He didn't hold his fingers right. He put his head down when he played. Everything he did was wrong. It was like a trumpet teacher would go, "This is how you don't play," except it was Miles, man.
Yeah.
That don't work anymore.
It's like the lesson I teach people about on-camera flash look. And for years, we're taught on-camera flash was a bad thing to do.
Bad thing.
And I said, well, clearly, Terry Richardson didn't get that memo.
No.
And Jürgen Teller didn't get that memo.
No.
And making millions of dollars. So drop that. Remember the movie, you all might not know this movie. Remember the movie French Connection?
Yeah.
Gene Hackman? Remember I want to say the director of photography either died or got sick or whatever. And they had to pull in some dude who knew nothing about anything about composition or anything of those natures. And he was the one that had to make the movie. And all of a sudden, everything he was doing was wrong, and it became this brand new hit, and everything is fresh and brand new because he didn't know the rules.
Right.
He was doing everything from the hip, and everything was brand new and interesting and
hey, let's try this. What happens if we do this?
Yeah. That used to be in music. Sorry, because I'm a musician, also, of course, right? What happened in music was I wasn't classically taught, and I had a partner, and he was classically taught. He used to say, "Why did you do that?" Like, I don't know. I felt like it. Oh, nice. And he used to say, "Why did you do that? That's so different. That instrument's not supposed to be played like that." I'm like, "Well, it sounds good, doesn't it?" He's like, "Yeah." So his thing was he did not. I hated this because I really wanted to learn. He didn't want to teach me the rules. He said, because you're like the road runner. When he jumps off the cliffs and he just stand there and nothing happens to him. He doesn't have the rule of gravity and the knowledge of all of that, as opposed to the coyote, who's extremely intelligent. He has the rules. He get hit. He falls. He get hurt. He says, you're like, you just make stuff because it makes sense to you. He says, the second you start learning, you start to understand gravity, and you start to fall. Your imagination won't be as elastic as mine as it is now. And he was like, just keep doing what you're doing because you have a different different understanding of music than I do.
That imagination's so real. Joe Zawinul tells a story about the first night he was playing with Miles, and they're playing some song that they'd rehearsed about 3 times before they went to do the gig, and Zawinul hits the wrong chord. And Miles plays through the chord and makes it right.
Nice.
And Zawinul said, at that moment, I knew I was working with somebody on a much higher plane. Because he saw it as something wrong. Miles went, oh, that's cool. Let's do that.
Make it work or make it work moment.
Yeah, in a nanosecond,
I saw that with Mariah Carey did a song with George Benson, and they're at a live show, and he's sitting there with his guitar just waiting. He's playing the music, and she came in on a different key at the top of the stairs, only musicians caught this. He sat there. He listened, and he melodically transposed to the key she was in, because there was no other instruments. So by the time she got down to where he was, she puts her hand on his shoulder like, thank God. You saved me. But he just sat there real cool, and he just tilted his head. Bling, 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 bling. And once he got to where she was, he just slightly went back into his position.
That's so cool.
And you can't do that if you bound by the rules.
Yes, the rules.
The rule maker would go, so hold on, you're in the wrong key.
Are we going to stop the show?
We're going to stop the show. We're going to start over.
Right. So he just saved Mariah's ass. So it's like, it is what it is.
The professionals have to make it look like it's easy, it's flawless. You have to just be able to adjust without telling the crowd that there's a problem.
The magic of the mistake is playing through the mistake, because nobody knows it's a mistake until you go,
yep.
Yeah. It was like that in dance. You won't get booked in dance if you was to mess up and you was to make a face. That was big. So you can fall, do a whole bunch of backflips and get lit on fire. If you jump back up and then smile, you're good.
That's part of the show.
He's a part of the show. He was supposed to do that. Did you see that? He was the only one that was a part of the song. It said boom, you know.
Everybody went left, he went right. That was awesome.
That's how it was. Oh my God, yeah.
What's even better, Dave, is when the choreographer comes out and says, hey, do that next time. That was really cool.
You can't repeat it.
One of the first things I ever heard Don say was photographers are problem solvers.
Yes.
I've heard that over and over and over.
Yes.
Don, can I share an image? You mind?
Yeah, I think, no one's sharing the screen, so go ahead.
You had a very big series on Creative Live. And I literally watched every single one. And I was given this to do a review on. And I remember listening to you in the back of my head about how to light it, you know, what to do, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I only had one flash, no reflectors, nothing. But I did have 3 white Walmart poster boards.
Yeah.
That'll work.
In the video, you had taken a piece of wax paper, cut a hole in the top, and covered it for a diffuser. And I'm not picturing all this. And so I wound up putting a white poster board on the bottom, white on the side, the diffuser on the top. And I bounced it through the diffuser into the wax. And I'm looking at that, and I'm going, this is really ugly. Yes, it's there. The shadows are harsh, and there's nothing to it. So I went to my wife's junk, her Christmas junk. How do I get out of this?
I didn't even know how you got into that.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And so I grabbed her Christmas flower.
Nice.
And put that there. And then I was looking at it, and I said, I don't like this shadow. I don't want a whole lot of shadow. So I've got a 200-watt CFL with an umbrella. So I put it over here where there was nothing, about 6 inches from the product, straight on, and that got rid of the shadows.
Yeah.
This was the first and only product shot I have ever done. And I could hear Don in my head the entire time. You know, you can use one light and five reflectors.
5 reflectors.
5 lights, you know, on and on and on.
Problem solving. You guys, you figure out, when you decide to make that photograph, you make that photograph. That's
one I like. I like this shot.
Cool.
So,
very cool.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I love it when I love it when I hear people explaining how they solved problems, because you get if Dallas and I were, and if there were 5 photographers who'd been shooting for 12 to 20 years sitting around, and we start talking about the times we had to pull our ass out of the frying pan by, a Pringles can or running down to the store and
I've heard you do it.
5, sheets of Mylar or whatever. I mean, it's just on and on and on. What I love about commercial photography is it is never easy. It is never what expected. It's always different. There's always something to challenge you.
I got about 4 tether cords because when I'm packing stuff up, I got it down to a science now. I'll forget to pack a tether cord and get to the shoot, set up the computer, set up the camera, and say, oh my God, what's a tether? There's been more than one occasion at the shoot. Run to the store with me, I need a tether cord or this is not going to work. But you never let the client see you sweat.
Right.
No, we are in the middle of the desert, 100 miles north of Las Vegas. We left at 3:30 in the morning to get up there to dawn light. And we are setting up all the back in the day we had Honda generators. We didn't have battery lights. We had
right.
So we had the generators going. And I look over at my assistant and he's got this look on his face like he's really, he needs a bathroom really quick or something. And I walk over to him and I said, what's wrong? And he said, I think I left the meter in the hotel room. And I thought he was teasing. I said, oh, think positive. He goes, oh yeah, I'm pretty positive.
I left too.
So we're standing, we got 3 talent. We got this thing that would haul, remember those 3-wheel ATVs?
Yep.
It hauled ATVs. We got the truck. It's all polished. It's a big frickin' shot. There's thousands and thousands of dollars. He said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, you've heard of the Sunny 16 rule, haven't you? And he says, nope.
You go.
I said, we're going to Sunny 16 it. And I went back out there and I looked at it and I'm looking at it and I'm putting a fill card over here because the fill card is never going to blow the Sunny 16. It can't. It can't be bright enough to do. And I put the card here. We shot it. I swear to God, he was like, these are nailed. I said, because Sunny 16 rule is never wrong.
Never change. Right, exactly.
It in every state of the union, in every country, on every
around the world,
continent, it works. Someone asked me, is it the same on top of Mount Everest? I said, actually, it's not. It's 2/10 brighter on the top of Mount Everest because there's less pollution in the air.
Right.
But 2/10?
Don, do me a favor. Day hasn't seen your whole creative live. Can you show him how you light meter with a rope?
Wait, what?
Back in the day, I worked in LA, and one of the jobs that I got that really kept me going was shooting stills on B movies. These were movies that were never released to big theaters. They'd go right to the drive-ins.
Okay.
And there was a series of women FBI agents whose main job was to get naked whenever possible. Look, there's someone getting away. Take your clothes off and run, But they would shoot them in a week, and I'd get paid. At the end of the week, I get a check.
Okay.
And what I noticed was that the lighting director, they had the best meters of the day. The lighting director's chains hang, and that you'll see it today. There's chains hanging on the lights. They bring that chain out, they stretch it because that light at that knot on the chain is 5/6. Always. Doesn't matter what's reflecting into it. That light's 5/6 at the end of the chain. They'd take all their meters and then they'd pull that out. So people were asking about, I don't have a light meter. So I said, what you do, you get a piece of string. I don't know how long it's going to be, but start with about 15 feet. You're going to cut some off. And work with me here. You got your strobe set up, right?
Yeah.
You're going to take that string and you're going to hook it onto the stand at a spot you can always hook it onto the stand at. You pull that string out and you take your light meter all the way down and you shoot the strobe at 1/8 power at the normal setting, the 50 millimeter on the strobe. 1/8 at 50. You find F4. When you nail F4, you take the rope, put it together like this, pull it down to the middle. What do you have down here at the middle? F8. Inverse square law. Twice the difference, two stops, right? And now you got F8. Then you take between F8 and the camera, you put that and boom, right there in the middle, you got F16. And then between F16 and F8, you put a little knot there. That's F11. Is it dead on?
And the rope will have he just tie a knot.
Tie a knot.
That's smart.
Yeah. Amazing.
And all you have to do.
I went right to the studio.
And just keep in mind, pretty much every modifier I know of kills two stops.
Yes.
Bounce umbrella, shoot through umbrella, bounce it. It doesn't matter. Two stops. When you're doing a shoot through umbrella, you have to do it from the distance of the flash, right? But when you're doing a bounce umbrella, you have to do it from the back of the umbrella because the flash is aimed that way. That becomes your primary light. I did this all over the country for 3 years. I traveled and did this, and I'd pull it out and I'd do the demonstration.
It's brilliant.
And we'd nail it every time. I say, hey, all you do now is put your person there, pull the string out. Oh, F8, there you go. What if I don't want F8? Power and distance. Crank it up to 1/4 power, and now it's F11. And a half power, it's F16.
Wow.
And it's like, whoa. I still carry it, but I'll bet you, Dallas, how often do you use a meter? As often as you used to?
Every single time I shoot.
Yep.
Every single time. It doesn't end. Especially, it's part of the kit. It stays with the kit.
Yeah.
And it comes to the point that
what is that?
What was it?
Sakonic.
Oh, yeah.
Sakonic?
Yep, the 358. The 358.
I'm still rocking my Minolta Flash Meter 4, baby.
I love them. I train my students like I was trained. It doesn't change. I make them shoot like film photographers. I don't make them overshoot. I make them think about the shot before they take it.
You know, it's interesting. I think that saves a lot of time too, because I was taught to think about. I'll obsess about my shoot before I do my shoot. Then I go and I do the shoot, and it's like, okay, I already did this already. I know what I want it to be. This is gonna be that. It's gonna be that. You do this, you do that, and then you're able to enjoy the shoot because I did all the thinking already. Versus I get to shoot like, what are you wearing? What are we doing? What kind of light do you want? You want it to be like I hate that stress feel thing. So even if a client say, hey, I don't want it to be high key light. I want it to be gray. Okay, got you.
One of the ways to get to make sure that doesn't happen, and I learned this a long time ago, when you're working with models, they want you to be in charge.
Yes.
You are the photographer.
If
you're in shooting and you let someone else take charge of the shoot,
it's going to go downhill.
You're done.
Yeah. You're doomed.
You're doomed. Just finish it up as best you can and chalk it up because you'll never get – all you can do is get in a pissing match at that point with the makeup artist or whoever's taking it. Yeah. So you never do it. And I would see photographers – a model would walk in and say, oh, what should I start with? And the photographer would say, well, I don't care, whichever one. I'm like, oh, no. You're a photographer. If you don't care, why the hell would she care?
Yeah.
I'm like, let's put them up. I want you in this black one. Let's go with these heels. You know, that's why I say you got to know fashion a little bit. Let's go with these heels, and I wanted, however she had her hair, I wanted it changed. So if she walked in and it was down and it was absolutely stunning, that's okay. We'll take it down later. I know it's stunning. Right now, I'm gonna put it up.
Right.
Now I'm not playing them. I'm not manipulating them. I'm giving them the security to know that I know what the hell I want to do.
Right.
You know, the only thing I always had a hard time was with earrings. They go, which earrings? I said, which one's longer? That one. That's the one. I like dangly earrings. Pretty much it. And if you're not a fashion person and you don't know, ask them which pair they would wear.
Always.
That. And they'll let you know. And they're usually right. So.
Yeah.
That's
makes
great.
It easier too.
Dallas, we need to do this more often, my friend. You're a delightful guy. And same with you, Day, and everybody who's on. Thanks for coming here. I got to jump off because I got a show coming up here in a few minutes. So
Nice.
I had a blast. We'll talk to you soon, and we should set something up. Maybe every other month, just have a chat.
No, you got to do more than that. We're gonna figure
Thanks for letting me be here.
Let's figure out the YouTube situation, and we can take it to YouTube. That's our next assignment.
Okay, I will. I think what we have to do.
I sent you both messages on how to do that.
Okay, fantastic. We will do it. We will make it happen. I will put this up on YouTube later tonight, so it will be there. And I'll take the file, Dallas. If you want to put it on yours as well, I'll take the file, Dropbox it to you.
Cool.
There you go. Everybody, great meeting. Some new faces. Love you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you. Nice meeting everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.